Hey, it's Carrie.
And Ashley.
We welcome you to the Self Care Cafe. We are both health professionals and moms and nature lovers and food lovers and love helping women get over dieting and just start living. We think that talking about bodies and perfect bodies and dieting is just boring.
Did we put you to sleep there, Carrie?
Yes. So if you are ready to ditch dieting and get to living and talk about more important things, then you are in the right place. We don't put shame and guilt on the menu here. You don't even have to tip us.
Nope.
Come hang with us. The advice is free. We want to have a bunch of girlfriends to just hang out with and get real with, and it's time to start living, ladies.
Hey, Carrie.
Hey, Ashley. How are you?
Great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. What have we got on the menu for today?
Well, let's chat some more about intuitive eating. Like more specifically than we typically do, I guess.
Yeah, I like that idea because I feel like there's still a lot of confusion around it. And I feel like there are also a lot of influencers and people out there on social media that are claiming intuitive eating when it's not necessarily real intuitive eating, or they're putting, like we like to put our own spin on things too, but you still have to follow kind of the basics,
The
right?
point, right? Like anytime, this is just a little quick aside. Anytime you see anything with intuitive eating and weight loss, it's definitely not true intuitive eating, because intuitive eating doesn't endorse weight loss. That's just a quick little note for anybody that might be seeing that out there.
Right. Right. So what we did was we kind of so there are 10 principles to intuitive eating. We've broken it up into 3 phases to try to make it a little bit more manageable chunks that are all related and go together. At least they go together in our minds.
Right.
We'll see what you think.
Right. So the 3 phases we kind of put everything into are breaking up with dieting is the first one.
Mhm.
The second phase is getting to know your body. And the third phase is making up with your body. And the
Yeah.
second and third one are definitely similar, but they're different in their own ways too. And it's tricky to kind of split them up because they are all so connected. We kind of had a hard time deciding what we wanted to do because everything goes together and it was hard to keep them separated, I guess.
Yeah, well, and there's also definite overlap,
Yes.
which is what makes it all one big ball of intuitive eating, right? Like,
Mhm.
so they all they fit together and there's overlap. But hopefully kind of breaking it down this way will help you, hopefully it'll help you see it from a little bit different lens.
Yes, and that's what we're all about. We're trying to make it more, like Carrie said, realistic, but also understandable because it can be very, like, out there and not, like, tangible. It's hard to understand. So we try to talk about it from a bunch of different perspectives or lenses, so that way it might help some people understand this way, and the next time we talk about it, maybe somebody else will understand. Just everybody learns a little bit differently.
Yeah, and to help you see too, like, because we think, oh, intuition, like it sounds woo-woo, but it's really not. It's what you were born with this knowledge in your body. It's just has been clouded, through the years based on different things. So
Definitely.
it's just getting back to that, what you were born with.
Mhm. Right.
So,
So the first principle, so we're going to cover the first 4 principles of intuitive eating in this phase, breaking up with dieting. So the first principle is rejecting the diet mentality.
why would you
So
want to do that?
why would we want to do that? Well,
Well,
um,
first let's know that we understand why people diet and
mhm,
right, because it's a safety net.
yes.
It offers structure. Some people feel like it allows them control. It's which hopefully we can get you to see that that's actually um I don't know if it'd be an
It's kind of,
oxymoron, but it's a little bit
yeah,
twisted because while you feel like you're in control, you're really allowing something or someone else to control what you eat and how you eat, when you eat,
right,
all of it, right?
right. But yeah, I think Carrie's point is like we understand how people feel the need to diet, and we're not saying if you diet, you're a bad person or anything like that because
No, there's
we
no
all feel,
judgment.
yeah, exactly.
And we understand the pressure with it too, right? Like
For sure.
there's a ton of pressure, including from the medical field. Like
Mhm.
your healthcare provider might be pressuring you to lose weight and to do it through dieting. And it just it just puts even more pressure on it. Um, so yeah, we totally get it. We totally get why you want to diet.
Mhm.
Um, but we encourage you to think about why not, maybe like what would life be without dieting? How would that feel?
I feel,
How does dieting make you feel?
yeah, I feel like there's gonna be like almost a 50-50 response to
Mhm.
that with people. Like
Yes.
some people might feel really freaked out, like, oh my gosh, if I'm not
Mm,
dieting, I don't know what to do with food at all. And the
right.
other 50 will be like, oh my
Oh,
gosh, what a relief.
freedom, freedom.
And if you feel a different way, please let us know because we would
Yeah.
love to hear that.
Yeah, but it is scary, right? Like when you're so used to dieting and having that structure and just tell me what to eat. Like how many, both of us, right, have had forever, like clients, like just tell me what to eat. I don't want to have to think about it.
Almost
Um,
every person.
yes. But again, as I said before, your body is your body. Your body is your responsibility,
Right.
right? And so it's your responsibility to take care of it at the best of your ability.
Yeah, and I feel like the whole, like, "Just tell me what to eat" comes out of the frustration of having tried so many different things
Mhm.
and having them not quote unquote quote oh my goodness, quote unquote "work," and
Mhm.
that's the whole point. Like,
Yeah.
none of these things work because they're not in your body.
Right. And I think too of the fear of failing, right? Like in the
Mhm.
fear of not trusting yourself and your body. Which again, this is just a reminder, this is a process. This is not an overnight solution at all. So while we know that most people also look for that quick fix, this is not it. And as you'll see, there's a lot of mindset and emotional work that goes along with this.
Yeah.
So what we think is really cool, or at least I think is really cool too, is that it also can help start the healing process with other areas of your life, right?
Right.
And so, but we would ask you to do an honest assessment. What has dieting cost you? And a lot of times we don't think about this way because we just see, the immediate weight loss, the benefits of it, and we don't really think about, or at least don't honestly, and a lot of this assessment, it takes a lot of honesty to really and again, there's no shame in this or anything. It's
Right.
not to make you feel bad about yourself. It's not about that. It's just, but we do need to take an honest assessment of ourselves and our patterns and our behaviors and our
Right.
thoughts and feelings if we're ever going to see growth.
Mhm.
So,
Or change.
right.
Yeah, and I feel like with what Carrie was just saying, some people might not be ready to really dive into this, and that's okay. A lot of times we hit what we call diet rock bottom before we're really ready or open to hearing about other ways to do like food and nutrition. And any way you decide to look into this is fine. Like there's no right or wrong way to it. It's all about how it works for you and like what you are trying to get out of it or, you know, do with it.
Right. Right. And sometimes also you have to ask yourself, well, what ultimately are you looking for? Are you,
Right.
what are your reasons for why do you diet? Besides just to lose weight, that's not a strong enough why. What is it about dieting and losing weight? What is your why behind that? So getting that stronger why and also recognizing the damage that dieting may be doing to you, um, can, if you have that why and you're willing also, I know we always talk about that readiness, but sometimes it's like, you know what? I'm scared and I'm not sure I'm ready, but I'm willing to try something different.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that maybe that's the point that you need to get to, like, okay, I'm really sick of this dieting thing and I'm sick of feeling crappy about myself. It doesn't work. I lose weight, but then I gain it all back and maybe then some. And I'm sick of this cycle, right? And if that's become your pattern, you need to interrupt that pattern and do something different. And even if you don't feel quite ready because it's scary, okay, like being courageous and brave, it doesn't mean a lack of fear. There can still be that fear, but you do it anyway and you're willing to try it. And give it an honest shot too. Like sometimes we'll do something for 3 days or a week and be like, yeah, tried it, or try it once and yeah, that didn't work. No, that's that's just still your fear talking and getting in the way. So it's being, that consistent practice, and intuitive eating is no different. It is simply developing a new pattern, right?
Exactly.
Because you've
Yes.
got this old pattern of dieting, your diet cycle, your weight loss, weight gain cycle, whatever you want to call it, and um, this new pattern, which is learning how to nourish your body. And so that's really all it is are those new patterns. So interrupting the old pattern and being willing to try something different.
You nailed it.
Nailed it. All right, Ash, what are some reasons why we might not want to diet? Um, right? Because it affects, it's not just physical, but we're going to start with the physical
Mhm.
reasons why.
Yeah. So, like what we were talking about, like how has it cost you in the past, right, Carrie?
Right.
So, some things that can happen on a physical front are if you've experienced weight gain, kind of in between dieting, after you finish a diet, however it might work out. That's because diets are a really great way to gain weight, which seems so backwards. And we actually did a whole episode about it. I think it's episode 3. So you can go back and check that one out if you want some more
Is it
information about that.
it's the old yo-yo dieting, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Right. You
Yep.
lose weight on a diet and then you stop the diet and then you gain your weight back and then you go on
Yep.
another one. It just keeps going.
Right.
And all of that actually slows down our metabolism. So that's another kind of physical cost to us. Um, we get out of touch with our hunger and fullness cues, which is one of the things Carrie was talking about earlier with kind of that clouding of our body trust about nutrition. Because if we aren't sure if we're hungry or full or whatever, then it's like, well, what do I do? And that's why a lot of times we look for just tell me what to do.
Right. Right.
We
And some that comes from too, like as a baby knows when they're hungry, right? But over time, they we get put on schedules, partly, because of school and eventually work and things like that. So it's kind of melding, right, the intuitive eating with real life, because
right.
sometimes, depending on the schedule, you can't just pop out your your snacks or your
Mhm.
next meal, so it's making it work with real life.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
What other physical consequences
Well,
are
let's see. We get a lot of cravings. We can also
there?
experience chronic fatigue. And I know so many people that are like, I want to improve my energy levels. And it's really interesting to think about how their nutrition, as well as like their dieting history and how they feel about food, can play into that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally get that. And then there's social consequences, right?
Mhm. Yeah. So a lot of times if we're on a diet or following rules or a meal plan or something like that, we're eating differently maybe like on our own independently versus how we're eating around other people. We might not want them to like make judgments about what we're eating, so we eat differently. We probably compare our food to other people when we're eating and saying, you know, all the different things that we might say, like, oh, they got salad, they must be watching their nutrition or whatever. Or if it's the flip side, like maybe they're ordering a cheeseburger and french fries, and maybe you think, oh, they don't care about their nutrition. There's a lot of different thought processes that can
Yeah,
go on
there's
along.
actually there have been studies on this too that have shown, especially like groups of girls when
Mm,
they go out, like there's usually, right, if you have a group of girls, there's usually like a leader or two, right? And they're kind of looking at them to see what they're eating. It's like maybe you're really craving pizza or, those chicken fingers or burger, but they get a salad, no dressing.
right.
Right. And you're like, oh, I better do the same
Yeah.
because they're going to judge me, or, it's just that whole wanting to fit in. And we do it as adults too. It's not
Yeah.
just younger people, it's adults too.
Yep. Or
And
even like whether or not to eat. Like some people might be like, oh, actually, I'm fine. And so you're like, okay, well, I'm starving, but I guess I'll wait. And that
right, you're at
is,
a party and all this food is out, but everyone's afraid to eat any of it because what are people gonna, or I don't want to eat in front of people, or what
yeah.
are they gonna think? And obviously a lot of this comes down to self-esteem, right? And self-worth,
Right.
because if you didn't care, you would
Just do what you want.
find your own body.
Yeah. Mind
Uh,
your own body. I love that.
Find your own body. Um,
That is
so
awesome.
yeah. And that
And
comparison thing is just so dangerous in so many ways.
yeah. And with social events too, sometimes because of all that stuff that happens at social gatherings or events or out with friends or whatever, a lot of times we tend to skip them
Mhm.
or we just are miserable during them. And
Right.
so that definitely can take a toll on our relationships.
Mhm. Yeah, like if you've ever had friends who were so either into the dieting thing or maybe into like over exercising, and they would miss social events because they couldn't miss a workout. Right. When it starts interfering in your life like that, it's a little red flag.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Carrie,
What
what are
about
some, Carrie, you do this next one.
all right. So, mentally with our moods, you might worry about eating all the time. And you probably have some strict rules around eating. Maybe you count calories, carbs, macros, anything like that. Tend to divide food into good or bad, and then that kind of applies. Oh, I ate really good today, so I'm good, right? And then, or, oh, I ate from the bad, the foods I'm avoiding, the bad foods. And so I'm bad. And then what you might do also, once you eat a bad food, like, oh, forget it. I'm just gonna, and then you binge, right? So it
Mhm.
can go different ways. You might have mood swings. Some people are afraid of feeling hungry because they think it's a bad thing, like you're not supposed to feel hunger.
Mhm.
um, which is just blows my mind. Maybe you're afraid of feeling too full, so you eat tiny amounts, but you're not satisfied. Um, Maybe you don't trust your body, or once you start eating, especially if it's a food you're trying to avoid. What's the word I'm looking for, Ashley? The
Like a
uh,
forbidden food?
forbidden food. Thank you. If you start eating a forbidden food, you're afraid you won't be able to stop eating it.
Hmm.
And then maybe you even fantasize about food, or are totally preoccupied, like it's always at the front of your mind. What am I going to eat next? Or how am I going to do this? Right? It's that stress. Can you feel
Yeah.
stress when I talk about it? Like
Yes,
it's
I
so
do. You're making me
stressful.
feel anxious.
Ah!
And it's really interesting that we just got on that topic because undernourishment, so not eating enough, actually causes these things too. So not eating enough does make us preoccupied with food. It's just what our bodies do to survive. They realize that, hey, we're not eating enough, so let's ramp up thoughts about food. Let's ramp up your hunger signals. Let's try to get you to go get food because our body thinks that we just don't have access to food. Think about caveman days instead of, hey, we're doing this on purpose.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then behaviorally, can be cost too. Like if you have a food rule and if you break that food rule, you eat more of it. Like that, like we just mentioned, right? You eat a forbidden food and all of a sudden you're binging on it.
Hmm.
So maybe you're eating more when you're stressed. Some people eat a lot less when they're stressed.
Hmm.
Are you exercising only to burn calories or lose weight? We'll get into that more in another episode. Maybe you talk a lot about dieting, weight, and food. There are so many more other interesting topics to talk about,
For
right?
sure.
But I'm sure we've all had, been around people that is all they talk about.
Yeah. And an interesting note too is like I talk a lot about food, obviously because of my job, but
Mhm.
also just in my personal life because I just really enjoy food and I really like eating good food and food that makes me feel good. So I do tend to talk a lot about food. And so if it feels like the ick factor in your gut that you
Mhm.
talk a lot about food, or does it feel okay? Like, you have
Right.
to kind of take some of the things we're saying and say, "Oh, do I do that, and is this feeling okay to me, or does this not feel, like, great?" And it's hard because a lot of the things we're mentioning are very normalized. So many people do these things or feel this way, but it's not normal. So, just because a lot of people do something doesn't make it,
Okay.
like, okay, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, it's been normalized and that's what we get so much in our society. I mean, how many magazine titles um do you see, with the headlines or about weight loss?
Yeah. So
Some of
many.
them, every single issue, there's something
Right.
on weight loss.
Something. Yeah.
Um, and the bottom line is if diets worked, if there was that one magic diet that worked, we wouldn't be here.
Exactly, we wouldn't,
So
definitely. And not to mention, like, the time and money cost. Like, we talked about all these other costs, but there's also, like, your time, your mental energy, and your actual money that goes into all of these things. And
right.
actually, I think we did a quick calculation once about how much time people spend on dieting, and it was crazy
Yeah.
because the average person, I think, is goes
How
on,
many
like,
years
20
is it? Yeah.
yeah, an average person does, like, 26 diets in their life, and if the average one is, like, I don't know, even just a week, it's like it really adds up, like, y months to years of your life just spent on dieting and thinking about food.
Right. Because even if you're not currently on a diet, there's a good chance if that's your pattern, like to diet, then not diet and diet, then you're still thinking and obsessing about food and what you should and shouldn't be eating,
Mhm.
right, in
Right,
between there. Um, and, hating on your body
right.
because now maybe you put the weight back on or, you know, "Oh, I did it again. I failed." People were saying how good I looked. Now I don't get compliments again and so embarrassing
Yeah.
and just all the feelings and thoughts that go along with that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because the principle is how to reject the diet mentality, and so we've been talking a lot about, like, actively dieting, but like Carrie just said, even if we're not specifically following a diet or meal plan or whatever right now, we do tend to have an underlying diet mentality, like, with the food rules and just how we think about food in general.
And weighing ourselves, we haven't brought that up yet,
Yeah,
just the obsession with the scale, and what that shows.
yeah,
And I know I've known clients that, "Well, I need the scale because I need that accountability."
right.
But it's like, well, how are your clothes fitting? Like,
Mhm.
right? Or how are you feeling in your body? Are you nourishing it? There's so many other ways besides the scale.
Exactly, exactly.
I hate the scale.
Agreed.
So what are some good because we want to really give you some more concrete ways. And some of this is difficult because some of it is mindset work, right?
Mhm.
Um, but we will be giving ways also to sort of change your patterns faster. But what are some ways actually that they can um use? What are some tools they can use or things that they can do
Mhm.
to get out of this diet mentality?
Yeah. And I think one part of it is sort of letting go of that fantasy we have about, like, if I just lose 10 more pounds or whatever it might be, because if, like, it were that easy, like we were saying a few minutes ago, we would all be there.
Mhm.
And how many people do you actually know that have got there? And even if you know a few, we also don't know how they're really feeling about it. Like, they might say they're great and all this stuff, but maybe they're starving, maybe they're miserable, maybe they binge eat at night and you don't know. Like, we have to look at the overall picture, not just what they look like. And so letting go of that, like, ideal body that we fantasize about, like, is it 10 pounds? Is it 20 pounds? Or is it whatever? Or
Mhm.
just toning up or whatever your thoughts are, we kind of have to almost grieve that a little bit. Like, give yourself some time to
Mm.
let that go. Think about, you know, if I'm meant to be in this size body that I'm in right now, that's okay. Like,
Yeah,
trying
and
to
I think
accept that a
too,
little bit.
and being realistic, what has your body been through,
Mm,
right? Like, what is your age? Have you had surgeries? Have you had babies?
mhm,
What stage of life are you? Are you in menopause? I think and we fight the idea of aging, right? We want to hold on to youth for so long. Um, and again, social media doesn't help with this either. But and that's not to say don't take care of yourself either, right? It's like it's that it's that sweet spot
right, the
between
gray area.
between being so obsessed with it and not doing anything and not
Right,
caring, right? So it's that happy medium where you are taking care of yourself to the best that you can without going to extreme measures to do so.
exactly. And, like, being okay with it, like, having the flexibility and the self-compassion to be like, "This is good enough for me," because if I go to do more, then I'm not gonna be in a good place with my mental health or even with my physical health or whatever.
Yeah, and some of that comes down again to your self-worth and your
Mhm,
self-confidence, your self-esteem, and like Ashley said, having self-compassion also. Um, and just making those changes and doing them for yourself and knowing why you're doing it.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. But some more ways to kind of help you kind of unlearn some of this diet mentality is, if you're on social media, a really great one is unfollow accounts or pages that really glorify weight loss or dieting or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, just
And
get rid of it.
I want to interject too, like not all these people are bad.
Right,
That
right.
right because their intentions are good. And they're just following what they've always been taught. We've all always been taught this,
Yeah.
right? So their intentions are good. They want to help you. Many of them do anyway.
Mm,
And they're not bad people. It's just that they don't maybe they're not aware either of the dangers of all
mm,
of this.
right. Another piece too is, I think we mentioned it in one of our recent episodes, is anytime you're faced with something on social media, like an ad or whatever, are they trying to get you to do something and who is benefiting from that? Like, if they're trying to get you to spend money
Mhm.
on some supplement or whatever, they're going to benefit from you buying that. And they don't necessarily care about what that
What the
does.
result is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. because then if it takes longer and if you quote unquote fail the first time, oh, well, you just need to do it longer or whatever. Like just,
Repeat customers.
yeah. Cause what is it, $83 billion? Is that,
It's probably close to that. The last one I saw was like 72, but that was a couple years ago now.
yeah, there's a lot of money to be made
Hmm.
in the diet industry.
For sure. All right, Carrie, what's another one?
Um, Stop counting calories and macros.
Yes.
And again, this is not overnight. A lot of it you might start and then feels scary and feels not safe to do this stuff because you've always done it. Um, but just start. Like take a day. Just start with a day. Take a day
Mhm.
off from counting calories and macros, right? And
Yeah.
start there. Um, or do it all at once, and just say, I'm just done with this BS. I'm
Yeah.
done. Um, so, and what else? Stop
And
using diet tools.
yeah, just all dieting tools. And like we were talking about earlier, like using the scale to weigh yourself, or even if you're using a food scale, um, counting anything, using trackers, for steps or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, there's sort of a time and place for some of these things, but when it becomes an all the time, every day, I have to do this feeling, that's when we need to kind of say, is this actually helpful or is this keeping me somewhere where I don't need to be?
Right, because the more you use external tools, the less you're going to get to know your body and and trust your body.
Right.
Because if you're always using all these, you're letting everyone else tell you how you shouldn't be eating, what you should be eating, when you should be eating it, and maybe that's not right for your body. Right?
Exactly.
And our bodies change, like I said, as we age, things change, digestion can change. You might, certain foods might work better or less well, like it all changes. So doing as much as you can, getting off and it is scary, like but again, start with a day. Hey, today, just for today, I'm not going to step on the scale and I'm not going to count calories. Um, and just start there and try it for a day.
Yeah.
Um, and also the tools, we talked about in our last episode about the 10,000 steps a day and how that wasn't even based on science. And it's become such a huge recommendation, right? Um, so if you haven't listened to that one yet, go back and listen to that. Um, and you'll see where we're coming from with that.
Yeah. Another piece that is important, speaking of social media and things, is realize that any ads you're seeing about diet, weight loss, or any of that might not even be real. Like
Mm,
there's Photoshop, there's AI. A lot of times it's the fine print on stuff is like this isn't like average results or whatever. It's
these are not
really
common results.
Yeah, it's really gotten out of hand with how things are marketed. And again, I feel like a lot of us know that doing a specific diet isn't necessarily a great idea, but we're just so frustrated we don't know what else to do. Or like we're not maybe not actively dieting like we talked about earlier, but we're still having these thoughts about food.
Mhm.
Yeah. Or like before and after pictures. Those are a big one.
Yeah, those
We
are.
did another episode just about before and after pictures. So you can go back and look for that. But just quickly, like if someone puts up a before and after picture, it's probably only a short period of time between the two, like weeks to maybe a month or two. And we have to realize that the after picture isn't the long-term result, right? Like what happens to this person in a year or more? And
Yes.
likely it's going to be the same thing that you've experienced if you've done different diets.
Right. Well, and also, is the picture even real? Like you
Is it
said,
true?
has it been photoshopped? I mean, you can Photoshop things right on your own computer now. You don't even need a digital editor to do it.
Right.
or hire a professional to do it. You can do it yourself.
Yep. Or even filters. Filters even.
And filters, right. And the other thing too is you don't know the person's lifestyle, Maybe you have four children and work full time and your kids are all in different activities and the person you're looking at is, single in their 20s, no children, and maybe it's their full-time job, maybe they're a fitness model.
Right, right.
You don't know, like it's the lifestyle is huge too. Like we put so much pressure on ourselves. Anyway.
So we've talked a lot about all of these things. So, so what kind of, I think it's hard too, because if you're so stuck in this diet mentality, we don't even know what's on the other side.
Right.
So one thing that I was thinking we could do is talk about like what is an example of
Hmm.
thoughts that we have when we're in the diet mentality, and then what's an example of a thought we might have when we're not in the diet mentality.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay. So, Carrie, what is like a diet mentality thought?
So like if you're stuck in that diet mentality, you might describe a day of eating as either good or bad, right?
I
Like
hear
that
that so
black and
much.
white thinking. I
Mhm,
either did really good and I succeeded or I failed and I was bad,
mhm.
right? And you see how like it takes it on your identity.
Right, and then like we talked about earlier, you can have, like, behaviors come from that feeling, like, "Oh, I was bad, so I'm gonna do XYZ to, like, quote, unquote, "fix it," or, "Oh, I blew it, so I'll just keep eating," or,
Right.
there's some things that happen after that.
Mhm. Yeah, like, oh, I ate a cookie. Oh, I blew it. So now I'll just eat the whole box.
Right.
Right. And then
Mhm.
tomorrow you try to starve yourself.
Yep.
Like it's a, and
Or
you have
or
to be
not.
on a diet to do this. Or right. Or you don't, and you give in, you just
Right.
eat whatever for the rest of the week. If it's Wednesday and you blew it, quote unquote, blew it. And well, whatever, I'll start over again on Monday.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And then so it's just that constant, and when
That
you
like
talk it, say it out loud, right? Because so many of us keep this inside our heads. We think it, but we don't say it out loud. And when you start to say it out loud, it's like, wow, that
right.
really.
I say that all the time to my clients. I'm like, it's really interesting that we talk about this stuff because most people never say these things out loud. And here we are, like, asking these questions and getting some, you know,
Mhm.
feedback. And people are like, huh, I've never said this. And it seems weird to be talking about it because it's such an inner dialogue part of our minds.
Mhm. And we
Mhm.
think we're the only ones that feel this way,
Right.
which is just silly
Yeah.
because most of us feel this way at some point.
Yeah. So,
Even Ashley and I, or I
mhm.
can't speak for you, but um, you know, we have our days where it's like, oh, just
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Frustrating but when you've worked on it and you worked on your mindset, you can more quickly pull yourself out of it.
Yes.
Um,
Exactly. Or just realize, hey, this is not a great day for this, so we'll just get through it. Like
right,
we have more tools because we have more practice.
right. Well, what can I do to nourish my body right now or my mind?
Mhm.
Right?
Or
Like
like
what do I need right now?
mhm.
Maybe
Exactly.
it's going outside for a walk. It's changing your physiology is a huge one and a huge first step to changing how you're feeling. No matter what, if you're in that one of those states where you're just feeling down or down on yourself or stressed out or whatever, change your physiology. So whether that's, I like to sit on my ball and bounce, right? But, can get outside and even if it's for 2 minutes, do something, put some music on and, dance and get it out. Just go for a walk, whatever it is, changing your physiology, maybe just splashing some cold water on your face, has been shown to really, you got to change that physiology first, right? Because when you're feeling in like that, what's usually like think about your posture.
Right.
You
We're like all slumped
head
over.
down, you're slouched over, right? Just changing your posture, standing up and taking some deep breaths, change that physiology to then change your mindset and help you clear your mind and
Right.
you can think more clearly.
And all
Okay.
that takes practice too because you're not used to doing it, so you forget about it.
Right. So it's what reminders can you put out there to trigger yourself to start, okay, change my what's my posture look like right now? How am I feeling? What's my posture look like? What have I been doing? I've been sitting working for 3 hours straight. Change your physiology. Get up.
Probably
Right.
need a snack or a meal.
Right. And you might need food too. So or hydration.
Yep.
But changing the way your body, what you're doing with it, makes a big difference.
Yeah. So we got a little off tangent there.
Yes, we
So
did.
so the point of that
Right,
whole
right.
conversation was to look at a diet mentality thought process and then look at a non-diet mentality thought process. So with Carrie's example of describing your day of eating as either good or bad, what is a non-diet mindset look like?
I deserve to eat without feeling guilty about what I ate.
Yes.
Woo!
Yeah. And even just shortening it to I deserve to eat, period, can be
Mhm.
really helpful too. I
Right.
think. I think a lot of us feel like the less we eat, the more self-control we have, the more, I don't know.
But ironically, it turns on you, right?
Yeah.
Because the more you restrict, you tend to then turn around and end up binging.
Mhm.
Not always. I mean,
No, not always.
obviously there are other, but I mean, I guess what would happen if you stopped eating?
Yikes.
What?
I'd be I'd be so hangry. I couldn't handle it.
No, but seriously, like in real, like, let's say you just, today I'm going to stop eating.
Mm,
Like, what does that sound ridiculous?
yes.
Yeah, because we know we have to eat to live.
Mhm.
So what is going to um, help you be the most productive, energetic, right? What foods help you do that
Right.
and help you feel good, and sometimes it is having that treat, right?
Yeah,
Like I think what both of us have chocolate every day.
pretty much. Yep.
And so do you feel guilty about it?
Never.
Good.
What about you?
Me either.
See, it's out there. We promise. It takes a long time to get there sometimes, though.
Yeah, depending on where you're at, right? It's
Yes.
like kind of a spectrum. Um, so stop beating yourself up and start here. Start
Mhm.
with assessing, again, the honest assessment. What are you, um, even if you're not technically or formally dieting right now, what is your pattern,
Yep.
right? Um, because you can still have that diet mentality without being formally dieting.
Right.
So what are you doing in your day to day that feels like that diet mentality, right?
Mhm. Right.
And it can be sneaky.
Yes, and I
You
think
can like,
that's hard because we think it's normal, but it's really
right,
not. So
right.
take some of the examples we talked about and say, "Oh, do I do that, and how is that going for me? Is it keeping me in this place, or
Mhm.
maybe it's okay?" Um, yeah,
And it's hard because a lot of people that you trust are still on board with a dieting thing.
right.
And
That's really
so
hard.
that is very hard. Maybe you trust your doctor or your healthcare practitioner. Maybe you trust your personal trainer. Maybe you trust your best friend or your sister, or your mother, whoever it is. Um, it's really hard to break free from that when the people that you love and trust are telling you to do it one way. And, who are we, right?
Right,
Two voices on the internet.
right.
But we've been there and we've been in different circumstances. And I don't ever want to go back to dieting again.
No,
So
yeah.
on that
So
note,
share with us your thoughts, comments, feelings on social media. Um, Love to hear from you. We always love to hear from everyone. Um, yeah, so our links are in the show notes, so you can find us all over. And
yep,
we'll chat with you next time.
yeah, awesome. we'll be looking at principle number 2.
Yes.
We need to tune in to find out what it is.
That's right.
All righty. Love you, latte.
Love you, latte.